Alright, in this video we're going to talk about color correcting by the numbers. And what this means is we're going to use our information palette to kind of take a look at the data in the image and use it as a means to color correct the image. So the first thing we need to do is kind of analyze the image. So I'm going to go to Window and open up my info palette, and I'm moving it over to this side here, and you can see I've got an RGB setting here, and as I roll my mouse over my image you can see that I get a red, green, and blue value. If those don't show up for you, you can change the color options and make sure that you're seeing additional colors here or whatever setting you want, but I typically like the RGB at first here. So what these numbers signify, if I open up my levels palette, so Command L will bring this up, you can see I have a 0 and 255. So what this means is that black is 0 and 255 is white. And so a combination of these numbers here will kind of signify what that value is. And what we can do is use these values to kind of signify and know what our numbers are and tell us if there's a neutral value there or not. And as you can see on this image, we have a studio background which should be neutral. And as I roll my cursor over that, I've got a red value of 174, a green value of 180, and a blue value of 184, which tells me that the color balance on this is off. And so we need to use those numbers to kind of help us work through that. So what I'm going to do is actually set some color sample values here. And under the eyedropper tool, there's color sample tool here. And what this allows us to do is to actually drop an eyedropper here. So you can see I've got one already here. So I can move these around as well. And what I'm doing is kind of putting these in three areas. So one is going to be this midpoint that I know should be gray. And then this is kind of a direct highlight here where it should be white. And then I'm going to set another one down here that's in kind of a shadow area. I'm not going to go deal with skin tones or anything like that. I'm just going to try to set it in these points that really should be neutral. So it's kind of a mid-tone highlight and a kind of another mid-tone shadow. But in those three areas, or an area in your image that you think should be neutral, gray, are good places to drop these points, because then they give you some values, and we can kind of see where those values are across the image, because we may have color balance off in one or more areas. And as you can see, it does look like we have some consistencies off in the red and the blue channel as well, because these are all a little bit different. And so what we're going to do to correct that is to open up an adjustment layer, and I'm going to use curves because it's the most powerful tool. And you'll notice as soon as I made my adjustment layer, and we have a second set of numbers. So this is going to be the value before we make an adjustment, and then this will be a value after I make an adjustment. And what we're going to do with our channels, or our levels here, or excuse me, our curves, we're going to adjust individual color channels to color correct the image. And so I'm going to start here and look at this and think, well, I've got, too much green perhaps, or not enough green in this image. And so number 2 here, I'm going to just start by selecting our green channel that we have. And when I click this button here, it lets me click and drag. So on the second marker here, if I move that up to 249. Now those three numbers are right, so that should be neutral, but the image doesn't look right. So what that tells me is that it's not in the green channel, but we have too much in the blue and the green. So I'm going to undo that, and let's go back to our red and our blue channels. So if I hit my red channel, do that same thing, and let's bring that down to 240. And we'll hit our blue channel now, same point, and bring that down to 240. That's starting to get somewhere. So we've got that on our highlights. Let's color correct this one and see if it fixes some of the others. So I'm going to actually bring up the red on this one. And we'll bring up the blue just 1 point and see what that does. Okay, so that did a pretty good job. And when I do the before and after, you can see I've got a better neutral background and the skin tones look a little bit better. Now this is really close. And then our shadow, let's see how that fixed it. That also fixed it pretty good. I've got 56, 51, 53. So it may just need a little bit of a bump. So not too crazy in my red and my green, or red and my blue channels. And sometimes it doesn't exactly fit, so that can be kind of a challenge. But we do our best. But when I look at that before and after now, you can see that everything looks a little bit better. So the key to this technique is to use a dropper, one of these samplers, on areas that you know are going to be neutral or should be neutral. And then use that as we're adjusting our numbers, kind of follow your eyes as well, because the image should look really natural and very accurate. So if you're making an adjustment on one of the levels or on the channels, that it may cause a shift in a wrong direction where it looks really bad, that's probably the wrong direction. So move to one of the other channels for your color correction.